Scaling your law firm doesn't have to be difficult. It's all about mastering a few key strategies, systems, and mindsets. Welcome to the Scalable Law Podcast, where we talk about how you can increase profit in your pocket and time in your calendar. My name is Carolee Fontanelli, and I have successfully scaled my firm so that it doesn't solely rely on me. Now I love teaching other law firm owners how to do the same. Let's transform your business starting now.
Welcome to another episode of the Scalable Law Podcast. I'm recording this right before the week of Christmas 2024. So as you can imagine, the world feels a bit crazy right now. I'm sure it does for you as well. Every lawyer that I'm talking to at the moment is absolutely ready for that Christmas break. But it has certainly been a very big year. And for me, it's been an excellent year in both collective family law and scalable law and just life in general. So it's been an awesome year. I've loved connecting with so many law firm owners, and I have loved helping people in scalable law to grow and scale their firms. There have been many transformations in law firms that are part of scalable law, growing from, their first year of $10,000 months to $30,000, $40,000 months, growing from their third or fourth year from, $1 million a year to $2 million a year, systemizing their businesses, getting a great flow of clients coming through the door, building their teams, automating their firms. There has been so much going on, and it's just been an absolute pleasure and joy to be part of it. And I'm really looking forward to 2025. We have got some amazing law firms in the program, and they are all going to have an incredible year in 2025. So I'm super excited about that. But for today, we are changing gears, and I have a wonderful guest on the podcast, Seth Price. Now, I met Seth at CleoCon in Austin. I was in at CleoCon in October, and it was a wonderful event and a great time. Scalable Law was there exhibiting on the floor as a sponsor. It's a very big event, so it's very hard to meet everybody, unfortunately. There's more than 4,000 attendees, so it is huge. But I met Seth because his business was also exhibiting on the floor, and he came around to say hello. Now, the awesome thing about Seth is that he talks my language, marketing for law firms. And as you know, I can talk about that for hours on end. But the other awesome thing about Seth is that he is a law firm owner as well. And he has a very big law firm. He has more than 100 employees in his law practice. But what he's done is, in his law practice, he created a marketing department as the firm grew out. So rather than having external people, he had an in-house team. And then after a while, he decided that he would like to extract the marketing department from the firm and create an entire new business just for law firms, to help law firms with their marketing, because he saw a need and he's very passionate about marketing for law firms. Anyway, we are going to have a great chat with him about his journey as a true entrepreneur in the legal industry, and talk to him about marketing for law firms. So there's going to be lots of takeaways. I'm really excited to introduce you to Seth. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Seth. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming and joining me today on the Scalable Law Podcast. I am very excited to learn a little bit more about your journey as a lawyer, law firm owner, and also you have a marketing agency that specializes in helping law firms. You really are what I would consider a true entrepreneur in the legal space.
No, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great ride. I was one of those people that was destined to be a lawyer because my dad was a lawyer, and sort of followed that path through college, checking the box to law school, but knew that my passion, although I ended up with a law firm, was the entrepreneurial side. I've always enjoyed building things, and one happened to be law, one happened to be marketing, but the challenge is similar in that it's hiring people, providing service, marketing, and bringing that all together.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the things that we talk about in Scalable Law. They're the big challenges, aren't they? Getting more people through the door of your law practice, hiring a team and that service delivery piece, and then automating your firm as much as you can. So I would love to hear just a little bit about how you got into your law firm. And I'm also very intrigued to learn a little about how you scaled your law firm from, I'm assuming, from not much, yourself, to what we would consider a huge team. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So to a certain extent, we're the accidental law firm. I was big law out of law school, one of those big yucky firms. And I burnt out. I didn't like it at all. I was a terrible practitioner for big law. I wanted to be a client. The clients were doing cool stuff and creating stock option plans. And I was like, I want to be you guys. And I left the big law in the late 90s to join the first .com bubble in New York City when the internet was a brand new thing. And I worked with a company, I was a founding employee of something called uslaw.com. That's a precursor to what might be Fine Law today or LegalZoom. The online, we had chat, we had information, we had find a lawyer. And people would scream at us, nobody's going to find their lawyer online. It was a very crazy world. And that .com bubble exploded, as you know, in 2000. By 2001, things had really reconstituted. And my buddy, who I went to college and law school with, he's a lawyer's lawyer. He loves practicing law. He loves the courtroom. He's a criminal defense lawyer at heart, but he teaches at Harvard Law. This guy loves the law. And so from day one, we divided and conquered. He was the chief legal officer and did this sausage making and made sure the clients were happy and did their work and got great results. And my job was to make the phone ring, answer the calls, and set up an environment where we could actually start to scale that process.
That sounds like it was a lot more fun than big law.
Oh, it was. And from moment one, we started, the two of us, first in his basement, but he rented without me seeing it, a 100 square foot internal office in a shared office space with giant desks and a convicted, I think it was heroin dealer as our assistant. For those, that is not a great, this guy served his time, but he was, good with certain skills, but not necessarily with the typing and attention to detail. And then, let's see, we basically started taking our law clerks, turning them into attorneys, giving them work. And then basically I'd build another website, hire another lawyer, build another website. And we started to expand both geographically. So we have, in the United States, we have Washington, D.C., and then Maryland, Virginia, two bordering states, sort of adding lawyers in each of these jurisdictions because we had to have different licensed people in each of those places. And then over time, we added personal injury, family law, trust and estates, and anything I could market for, we then went out and hired for. And I would say, and I've met some of the people in your tribe, that one of the most challenging things in scaling a law firm, look, you got to make the phone ring, right?
Yes.
I take that and I love that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the hiring of great talents and figuring out how to incentivize somebody so they want to work for you and not for somebody else or do it themselves, that the HR component is not to be understated. And so many people, both in your tribe and my world, my own firm, if I could hire 5 more lawyers in certain divisions, I could keep them busy. For some people, it might be 1 or 2. They might be a solo or they might have 1 associate. But if they could find 2 great associates, that would be great. But it comes down to how much are you paying them and is it enough to keep it sticky? So something I talk about in my podcast, the Law Firm Blueprint, I talk about a lot is, you hire somebody, I don't know what your equivalent is. If somebody's in law school We call them a law clerk. They might be, in our world, I know your dollars are different, $20 an hour. They pass the bar, or they graduate law school, they might be $50,000 a year. Then they get licensed, and they're $60,000 a year. If they're with you for 9 months, you might think, you know what, I'm going to pay him $60,000. No, I'm going to be big. I'll pay him $70,000 in US dollars. If that's said, my competition thinks they're now worth $100,000. And I'm like, you're the guy I just trained up. So that if you don't have economic incentives that true up quickly, you're going to be churning people and then get frustrated and not want to scale. So I think one of the things is identifying who does it, who loves doing it, but then making sure you have an economic model where you share enough of what you're making with them to keep them along for the journey. And if you don't, it will be a constant churn. And figuring out what that balance is. Obviously, you need to make money for yourself as a law firm owner. But if you say, I think they're worth this, and the market is saying, no, they're worth this, it's going to be a really painful experience.
Yes, I have definitely had that experience myself as well. And one of the things that I've sort of recognized as my firm has grown is exactly what you said. It's like, there's actually plenty of clients out there. The competition with other firms isn't for clients. The competition with other firms is for team. Because if you don't have those team members, you can't actually grow and scale the business. And that's where...
100%. We can jump from the sausage making, as I call it, the production of legal work. But marketing, to me, is the part I love. We all do what we love. Like, you clearly love helping people grow their firms, and it shows. For me, I love taking a challenge and saying, hey, there's somebody who has a family law practice in Melbourne, and if we were able to get them offices in these suburbs, we would be able to grow their client base exponentially. But I know how to turn the fuel on. The question is, will you have the staffing to do it? And then, as you alluded to earlier, are you going to have the systems in place to make sure somebody who's not you, I know that you could sit there and give the best possible service to your client. But if you're now hiring attorney 1, 2, and 3, they're not you. And the question is, are you going to put those safeguards in to make sure that the people you get who are competent are able to deliver service in a way that's up to your standards? They're going to be as good as you. You could probably, maybe I can speak for myself, I was not better than the people I hired, but if you can't get beyond the fact that as you scale, there are going to be problems and it's not going to be as good as you do it yourself, you're going to stay a solo.
Yes.
One of my mentors, a guy named Chad Dudley, runs an amazing personal injury firm in New Orleans. He always says, at some point, there's somebody effing something up really badly. Somewhere in his family, 50 attorneys and 100 plus staff. Yeah. And he's like, and you know what? I'm okay with that. And again, you don't want that. You're not advocating for somebody messing. But if you get to the point where you have to control everything,
yes,
and that and you're not okay with the fact that mistakes are going to be made and you're going to have to fix certain things, you will never scale. Yes. So the idea is making smart choices, hiring in the best you can, and putting those systems in place that allows you. So that's what we did over the first 10 years of our firm. We got the phone to ring, hired people, put them in place, and as we lost somebody, we would say, you know what have we learned from that, and try to be able to pivot and raise the game with the next hire, always being improving. And because when you start, when you put your shingle out, as we call it, and you said, hey, I'm open for business, the person who's going to sign up to work for you is not the same as you now, who has your mug all over the internet, has conferences. Like right now, people want to work for you because they know you're a brand. But as you're starting out, you have to convince somebody to take a shot with you. And that being aware that as you start to hire and not knowing what you necessarily need at each stage, there's an awful truism I have found. I'm curious to see if you've seen this. When I make a new hire for a new position, and you can't wake up in the morning internalizing this, but the first person you hire may not be right. The second person you hire may not be right. It may take 2 mulligans before you figure out exactly what you need in that position. And so, I think it's being willing to experiment and learn from mistakes and building those building blocks so that you have that stable foundation to produce the legal work that's excellent so that clients come back as raving fans.
So it's tweaking and not throwing out.
Correct. I mean, it's not going to be a straight line. I wish it was, but it's hard work. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, how many times has somebody like given notice on a Friday and ruined your weekend? And you're like, oh man, but like, that's what you're paid for. That's why you're making a living different than somebody who takes a W-2 job, is because you're taking on, you know, that if on Monday morning that person took off and left, somebody could have to pick up those files. And when you're small, that's you.
Yes, that's right.
So, right. And until you get that redundancy, which comes with time and the scale to afford it, there are positions, you know, I remember early on when my bookkeeper left, that was like the greatest, you know, gave 2 weeks notice. I was like, what am I going to do now? And the more systems you have over time, the more that somebody else can step into that place. And it's not institutional knowledge, but rather great systems that allow you to advance.
Yeah, exactly. So with retaining staff, apart from paying them extra, say, what are some of the ways that your firm has become a preferred workplace?
I would say first, I want to just say it's not all about money, but if you could take money off the table as the reason somebody's leaving, meaning they might make a few dollars more somewhere else, but if you're paying 60 and somebody else is paying 100, you're going to lose the person no matter how great you are. I'd say the sooner that you have a non-lawyer professional running the office, it may start as an admin, eventually it's an operations director, you know, eventually, I'm not even, you get a real COO, but for most people, it's a law firm administrator of some, that to me is the beginning of stability. Because when you start, it's the force of nature. Carly, people want to work for you. That's great. But as you scale, not everybody's getting access to you by design. And so all of a sudden, you need to make sure there's a person that can service all of their needs.
Yes.
Making sure you have your benefits straight, make sure your payroll's getting out, making sure when they need assistance, it's there. When somebody calls out or goes on maternity leave, how are you making sure that that work is still getting done for the attorney so that they have that extra bandwidth? So I'd say first, staffing administratively to make sure that you are taking work that doesn't have to be done by the lawyers from the lawyers, A. And then B, one of the things that I would say is working on culture purposefully. You know, a lot of people in the United States, if you watch The Office, if you get the U.S. Office, is there an Australian Office?
No, we've got the American version of The Office. The
American version. You have the British version, obviously. But, you know, I always look at like the plaque on the wall with core values. I just think of that as something they didn't have in the office. But a lot of my lawyer friends, we have these 7 core values. Nobody knows what they are. They don't care. It's just a plaque on the wall. The sooner that you internalize core values and live by them, hire, fire, make sure that everybody's on board and buys in. We have PI, passion, integrity, and excellence. We work with passion, where integrity is table stakes, and legal excellence. That's our game. Everybody has their own piece that works for us. What was really interesting, funny story, I tried to get one with Price, my last name, and we were thinking passion, respect, and you know what? My administrator came to me, and it was a really hard conversation. She's like, look, you're hard charging. You're going to push, and somebody's going to say that's not respectful, and you've got to be careful. So why even put something that's a potential red flag in there? Make sure what you have you own, it's not close. And that why are we firing you? Because you're not passionate about you just don't care. Or you should, there was a lack of integrity. Or we say, you know what? We want excellence, and this is not the level of acceptable performance. Now, again, you have to be careful, introspective, make sure it's not your systems, your training, all those things. But if you start to sort of hire and fire based on core values, to me, that's when I really saw traction kick in.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So let's switch gears and talk about what we both are very passionate about, which is getting more clients through the door as your first sort of step to growing the firm. So with my understanding is that you had a marketing team within your law practice, and then you saw that as an opportunity to extract that and create a whole new business. So talk to us about your marketing agency and what services you provide there.
Absolutely. So Blue Shark Digital was created. It was actually my in-house team. It probably had grown to 6-7 people. And my deal was every 2 years, I'd have a guy, one time it was a woman, who stayed with me almost 2 years like clockwork. They'd spin out to do something else. One time they went off to be a sports agent. Another time they went off to solve AIDS in Europe. Each time they left me after 2 years and I had to start over. And it was a risk factor for the firm. So I said, you know what? I want to provide opportunity for the person I had in charge at that point. He'd been an intern and moved up through the ranks. And to this day, 10 years later, it's over our 10th year at Blue Shark, we took that team and turned it into Blue Shark Digital, with the mantra being, we build price by what's on digital. It's now 46 lawyers approaching 50. Let us take the same techniques we use to go from 2 to 10 to 20 lawyers, and let's leverage it for other people. And it's been an amazing journey. We now have 100 plus employees at Blue Shark. We focus on digital marketing, building websites, right? That's table stakes. Everybody uses the website. But the question is, it's great to have a website, but can it be found?
Yes.
So our passion is making sure that when somebody is looking for a Gold Coast family lawyer, how do we make sure that that firm pops up? And so to me, it's been fundamentals. SEO is content, high quality content, authoritative links, and a well-coded site. If you put those pieces in place, and now, as we've discussed in some of your online sessions, local, the Google business profile of the local environment, SEO combined with local has incredible ROI compared to almost any other form of marketing. You know, there's plenty of other ways to make a buck. We do paid search, Google clicks, local service ads are all awesome. But at the end of the day, the question is, can you find a way, given your business model, to make your phone ring? And I'll say, it's not right for everybody. For those of your tribe that are B2B lawyers, I'd say, yeah, you need a website. But if you're a B2B lawyer and you're not looking for consumers, let's say you're an outside general counsel and you're in, you're in Coffs Harbor. My friend is from there. There might be 100 businesses that are right for you to have as a client. It's not an endless supply. Have you personally connected with these people on LinkedIn for coffee, for a meal? Do you have tickets to a local sports team? Is there a club in town that you could join? What can you do? Because if there are 100 people, your job should be to have a list of those 100 people and cross them off one at a time. You shouldn't be doing search, because search is for something where there's a large enough group of people. Because if you're a business owner in Coffs Harbor and you need a lawyer, you're probably asking your accountant, your advisors, your mentors. You're not just Googling for somebody. Whereas if you're getting divorced or you've been charged criminally or you have an immigration issue, migration, I'm told, these people are literally looking for a solution online. And that's where digital marketing is so incredibly powerful, because the individual is going to be connected with that business and not looking for intermediaries or interpersonal pieces, because it's a transactional piece versus a repeat player situation.
That's exactly right. And I think one of the things, as I talk to lots of law firm owners, is that they have their website created, and often it's created and sort of dumped online without any sort of structure, content. There's not necessarily specific pages. They might not even have their marketing message on there correctly, because they kind of, they're trying to be everything to everyone. And so what would you do as a first few steps? Then they're sort of say on page 20, they're in the sea of websites and never going to be found by anybody. But it's a super powerful tool if they can be on the front page of Google. So what is sort of one or two things that they could be doing to make that happen?
Well, first thing, let's say something about the thing about starting a firm is get a website, because age of your domain is significant. So best time to plant a tree is yesterday.
Yes.
The best time to plant it, the second best is today. So get a website, register, put a page of content, let it start to age. Age is important. Second, I think have an honest conversation about what that website's purpose is. Where do you make your money? Where do you want to make your money? And as you optimize, let's take this. Imagine you're both a trust and estates lawyer on one side and commercial real estate on the other. Making sure your commercial real estate work may come from business relationships. You need to have a website that shows you do it, but the optimization is likely for the consumer-facing part. And then having an honest conversation about what resources you have to put forward. Because if you have no resources yes, you sort of make a page of content yourself, you can do stuff, but building a marketing machine takes some resources, not a lot necessarily, but understanding if you're trying to do personal injury in Sydney where there's a ton of competition, it's going to be much, much more expensive than if you're trying to do, a trust and estates practice in Coffs Harbour, right? It's two different beasts, and the competition is different, and what it's going to take to have that visibility is different. So I think assessing the competition level, what you want to accomplish, and figuring out what resources are going to be needed. And that's where speaking to digital agencies, and it's tough because some know what they're doing, some don't, but figuring out what resources you have and being honest with yourself. Because, for instance, SEO, which I love, is not instantaneous. Paid search is. You can buy clicks and get the phone to ring, but it's very expensive. If you don't have your intake dialed in, those phone calls not being answered, money's gone. You've nothing to show for it. Or you've seen that time and again. That said, SEO is not a free lunch either. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to have enough money to build that foundation. It's like building a house, right? You put up the frame, put the drywall on, you then start doing the interior. Until you have it completely finished, it's not worth anything.
Yes.
Right? If you have a framed house and your contractor walks away, the next guy says, this is terrible, I got to reframe it. So what I'm saying is making sure that you have a realistic expectation of what needs to happen, what it's going to cost, and how long it's going to take. And that very often I see people, it's a tough world, the digital marketing and SEO world, because a lot of people will tell you things you want to hear. Oh, $1,000 a month, I can do it great. There's so little resource. Let's reverse engineer. What does $1,000 a month mean? If 25% goes to profit, that means that $750 is going to substance. What can you do with $750 a month in a competitive market? And so I think what you start thinking about is, what are you willing to invest to get there? And that's where honest conversations come with percentage of revenue being spent on marketing. Just like if you look at your accounting bill and you're spending no money on accounting, you're going to run into trouble. If you have a business, you want it to grow, and you're not investing money into marketing, whatever type it is, it's likely not to grow. You could get lucky and get some referrals, but business isn't built on luck. So I think it's figuring out, look, how much do you want to spend on coaching? Because you want to have the right mindset, you want to have the right map to get yourself where you're going. But if you get all the coaching in the world, but if you don't invest in marketing, it's not going to be good. And if you have all the marketing in the world, but you don't know how to build and scale your firm, it's a combination of all of these things that have to come together in a smart order with your budget in order to get yourselves on that successive building arc.
With the SEO, as you said, or the digital, marketing in general, it's kind of like our clients coming to us and saying, what can you do for $1,000? Can you resolve my family law matter? And that's what they expect, right? Clients expect that, but we know as professionals that it's going to take a lot more time, which is more money. And so, you're saying exactly the same for your digital marketing.
Right, because if you can afford 3 hours of your time, you'll get 3 hours of work, but that's not going to resolve your case. Or if you do, somebody who spends 3 hours and no more on somebody's case will give away the farm.
Exactly.
And so it's figuring, and I would say like everything in life, this is the piece, and I go back to starting the firm. The thing that surprised me, I was like, oh, you want malpractice insurance? You go buy it. No, you have to become an expert in that. Health insurance for your people. You need to you could get a broker, but at some level, you have to understand what's going on, not as well as they do. But if anything that I ignore and delegate out without somebody in my firm understanding is always ends badly.
Yes.
So I'm not telling you to be an SEO expert, but you need to know enough to be dangerous, to understand what you're getting into so that you're able to make smart business decisions. And you're not like, oh, well, I've been investing for 4 months and I haven't seen anything. Of course, SEO can take 6 months to a year, depending on where you start, to see those results. And if you don't budget the money to get there, you're going to have a framed house with no drywall and a lot of water coming in through the house. And so I think it's like everything else, getting yourself as much understanding and setting like as an agency, we have to set expectations, but as a law firm owner, you can't bury your head in the sand and just see what you want to see.
I 100% agree. And one of the things that I teach people to set up, and I'm sure you've got this in your firm as well, is a data strategy where you know where the calls are coming from and you know what service they're ringing for. Because if you know all of that information and you're not just, because what agencies do is they have information from their back end, which is about impressions and clicks and things like that. But as a law firm owner, you need to know, is the phone ringing? And if not, or if it's the wrong calls, why? Because then you can work with the agency to ask the right questions, to actually then make those tweaks and improvements. Because so many times what I'm finding is that law firm owners are not learning about their data on the front end. So taking that responsibility as the person who's paying for the agency, and actually they're not able to have really great conversations or help. And therefore they end up dumping the agency. And it's not necessarily the agency's fault. It's just that they've got frustrated with paying money without results. But there's a lot that they can do on their end to help the results be better.
Well, and I'll divide your point in two. The first point, very well taken. With an agency, if it's a good agency, big if, right, who knows what they're doing, the more that you look at them as a partner that you work with, and you're giving them feedback, saying, I love these cases. I don't want these. These don't make me money. Please don't, And the more that you have these relationships, this content, let me help you design. It's like here are some videos. I'm going to go do an interview or to transcribe everything you can to think of the agency as its arm of your law firm, the better. If you say you're a vendor, dance for me, it rarely works well. All of that said, you said something in there, which I think is important and I think is a blessing for your clients that you have, that at the stage that they're at, they're starting to think about data. I didn't think about data for a long time, way too late. And so the idea that you're there, 100%, the more that you're a data-driven law firm, the better. I would say just to be cautious that you don't overly extract from things that may not be meaningful. Attribution can be tough. And it's very easy to make mistakes with attribution. So the first question is you want to start looking at data. But the second is to question, push back, and realize that it may not be that somebody may come to a family lawyer, right? They could see you online, speak to their friends, hear somebody speak at a conference, then go back to a different friend, and then click on a paid ad to come to your firm. Like, oh, that paid ad, no. You spoke at a conference, you built the website. So it's not perfect and not extrapolating too much from it. But at the same time, the sooner you start to become data-driven, the better. But understanding that there's a certain amount that you shouldn't spend the granular work it takes to get there. Because if the phone is ringing and the stuff you know as a referral is there, I would love to know, yes, this came from this click. But I'm happy to know that, just like marketing, half of marketing works, you don't know what half. It's better with digital, but it is certainly not every penny is going to be attributed directly through data.
Yeah, exactly. And it is hard because people, they'll say that they clicked on an ad, but they might have clicked on your review or they might have clicked on you being on the front, and especially if you are a firm that happens to have ads running on the front page, you're on maps, you're on, you're on the
everywhere.
Top, you're everywhere. People don't know actually where they've clicked necessarily. But either way, we want to know, that they're the right client and what our conversion rates are and things like that. And you made a point earlier about onboarding. If you're not able to onboard people well for whatever reason and quickly, these days you've got to have a fast loading page. And you've got to be able to answer the call and you've got to be able to onboard them smoothly. Otherwise, they'll bounce off and go somewhere else. So there's so many components that if they're not right on your end. I was on your podcast, which remind me again what the podcast is called, Blueprint.
The Law Firm Blueprint.
Law Firm
Intake. And I would like to propose, I know our time is ending here, that we do a part 2 where we talk intake. Because hopefully you can replay that conversation. But to me, that is the 1-2 punch. We talked about hiring and building but the intake. ignore at your peril. Whether
Yes.
you're one person with your own cell phone, it's a whole, like, we could talk for hours on it. But
Well,
to
you
me,
did.
I
You
don't
did
know-
talk for hours. You ran a whole series. So I
Yes.
recommend that people go over to the law firm Blueprint to check out that series. It was only about a month back, wasn't it? Or so.
Correct.
And there's a whole series with different law firm owners and experts talking about intake. And there's so many great ideas. And I think, we really have to think about who is actually doing intake. And as the law firm owner, are you the right person? And as the lawyers in the...
Spoiler alert, you're not.
Yes. Well, you're not the right person for a lot of things, are you?
No. But meaning, like, you may be selling for a while, right? I get it. But the sooner you get yourself out of that initial intake, that, like, two things that scale a law firm. One is that having somebody dedicated to intake, and secondly, the operations person. Those two moments are seminal in the growth of a law firm.
Yeah, 100% agreed. There's so much here that we could keep talking about, and I definitely agree that we should do a second podcast and talk about intake. Plus, I will put the podcast up that we did together on your podcast. But the other news is, which I'm really excited about, is that Seth is flying all the way here from DC to the Gold Coast to be part of the LawBizCon conference so that we can learn so much more from him about all of these topics, including, I'm not exactly sure what you're going to be talking about, but...
Well, we're going to talk about basically local search,
yes.
SEO, local search. But you know what? It all comes together, because if you don't, if the intake isn't there, none of this means anything. So I am excited. I'm sure we will have an amazing specific topic by that time. But bottom line is, how do you get your phones to ring at a cost-effective rate?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So thanks so much, Seth, for coming on the podcast today. How can people find you at Blue Shark?
I'm sure you'll have the link in the notes, but I'm Seth Price. Feel free to find me on the socials, the LinkedIn, the Facebook. It's Blue Shark Digital, no E, BLU, sharkdigital.com. And I'm Seth at Blue Shark Digital. And I, as we've talked about in prior ones, I am a huge Australiaphile. I studied at Sydney Uni. I visited. I've worked as a summer associate in Sydney, and would love the opportunity to speak to any of you guys and just hear about your practices and what some of the obstacles you're facing are.
Yeah. And I'd just also like to say to people, because people tune into this podcast from all over the world, when it comes to hiring a digital agency, you don't need a local digital agency. In fact, you shouldn't get a local digital agency. You should have the best digital agency that you can find anywhere in the world. So you can absolutely use an agency like Blue Shark and really get stuck into an agency that's actually going to serve you and do the best for your law firm.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to return down under and spent my time at Sydney Uni, and can't wait to see the Gold Coast not as a backpacker.
That will be a lot of fun. I'm sure it was fun as a backpacker as well, but
it was fun.
It's always a little bit more fun when you can fast forward with a bit more money in your pocket and you don't have to be backpacking.
I think you can't go back, and I would take those were some of the best days of my life, and so it is amazing memories, but it's also nice to have sort of come full circle and bring your bride back to share those experiences with her. Yeah,
that's going to be awesome. It'll be so great to have you both down here. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today, and we'll look forward to our next podcast, we will talk about intake.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the Scalable Law Podcast, brought to you by the Scalable Business Lounge. If you would love to know how you can get more clients without relying on referrals, head over to scalablelaw.com to watch my free masterclass. Until next time, you have got this.